Okay, so welcome to this Lancaster Health Festival session focused on seed resilience. To help us explore this topic, we have Dennis, Charlie and Gabriela, and we're going to first go and take a global perspective of seed resilience with Gabriela, and then we'll look at the national approach to this topic, and then we'll come back down to the local with Dennis and the Lancaster Seed Library. So I'm going to hand over to Gabriela now.
All right. So let me share the screen. Can you see it?
Perfectly, yes.
All right. So, well, first, thanks for the invitation. I'm Gabriela. I'm a lecturer in plant science in the Lancaster Environment Center. And today I'll be talking to you about a project that I started with one of my friends in Lancaster Environment Center, Jacob Phelps, that is a human geographer and somebody involved in conservation. So I'll be talking to you about tomatoes, but my background is actually plant photobiology. So I actually work with the light receptors in plants, and why actually the light receptors are so key, especially now under global warming and for human health. Hopefully at the end of the talk it will be clear. But I can tell you that the plant receptors are actually the way that plants sense the environment. It's the way that the plants know what to do in different conditions. In particular, the receptor sense light quality, quantity, the amount, the duration of the illumination, but they also sense temperature, and they use this information to actually modify what they produce. So I am particularly interested in plant metabolism. What do the plants produce when the environments are changing? So this is actually quite relevant in terms of the global warming and human health. And why is this? Because if we think about global warming, global warming is affecting, of course, yields, but it's also affecting the quality of the food that we eat. And why is this? It's because many of the metabolic pathways that a plant has, for example, the production of antioxidants, vitamins, pigments, are heavily modulated by the environment. So heavily linked to the light receptors in this way. So I have spent quite a long time looking at vitamins and antioxidants that also give flavor and aroma to the food that we eat and color. So one of those classes of antioxidants is are the carotenoids. So you could clearly recognize them because these are the pigments that give the food red, yellow, orange colors. So they are very important for plants. They are signaling molecule growth regulators, but also very important for humans because we cannot produce them. We need to eat them in the diet, and they are precursor for vitamins, for example, vitamin A. And as I said, the production of these compounds in plants is heavily modulated by the environment. And even in plants like, for example, tomato that accumulates very high levels of these carotenoids, and that's why they are red. But tomato is actually a very environmentally sensitive cultivar. And they can only accumulate these sort of pigments in very narrow ranges of conditions, especially temperature. So you could imagine that actually climate change is heavily affecting the quality of the tomatoes that we are eating. And this is actually of growing concern. So, but has this always been like this? Like, has always tomato been such a sensitive cultivar? So this brought me back to my country. So where is tomato from? Tomato is from Peru, but actually the domestication of tomato happened in Mexico. And it was from Mexico that actually tomato made the trip to Europe. And in Mexico, tomato was domesticated by the pre-Hispanic cultures, and not only by one, by many of them, and mostly in the southern part of Mexico, but not only in the southern part of Mexico, it happened across the whole country. Mexico is a very, not a very well-known country in the UK, but I can tell you that Mexico is the 5th most biodiverse country in the world. And why is that? Well, if you look at the climates that are present in Mexico, you can see that we have from the tropical forest in the south to deserts in the north, passing from valleys in the center that are temperate or they are high altitude cold valleys. So it came all together like this agrodiversity is tightly linked to our culture, but also tightly linked to our diversity in climates. So actually my original idea was to engage this agrodiversity to actually study how these metabolic pathways that are so important for humans could acquire resilience to climate change. So of course, I couldn't go to the whole Mexico. I had to select a small part of Mexico, and I selected Oaxaca state, southern state, for a program on tomato and climate change and nutritional value. So this, why Oaxaca? Oaxaca, because Oaxaca is like a mini Mexico. This is the climate diversity in Oaxaca. And you can see that it's pretty much a reproduction of what we have in the whole Mexico. We have from the coast to the temperate valleys, cold valleys, as well as tropical forest in the north part. But also, it's a very diverse agricultural, there is a very diverse agricultural production in Oaxaca, including tomatoes. And there is also a very high diversity in terms of the people that live in Oaxaca. And this is represented, for example, by indigenous languages and indigenous groups in this map. And also this is all coming together with highly diverse also culinary traditions. So Oaxaca seemed the perfect place to start searching for this agrodiversity and studying it. However, when I landed in Oaxaca, this is what I found. Like I went to the traditional markets, what I was expecting to find this agrodiversity, and what I found was this tomato, the Roma tomato, a monoculture that had invaded the whole country. And what I was wondering, like, why on earth this happened? And this has to do a lot with a shifting market. A shifting tomato market that made us, since the signature of the North American Free Trade Agreement with the US and Canada, the main producer of vegetables for the US. And this is, for example, the production of Mexico in terms of the import from the US. So you can see that Mexico produces most of the vegetables that the US are eating. And of course, it is a multi-billion market for Mexico, important in that sense, but it also shifted shelf life, and it also shifted cultivar preferences in terms, for example, now what it was looked for in a tomato was the shelf life, the price, the homogeneity, and basically the capacity to be used for processed food. So this actually, what caused is a rapid, very rapid replacement of the traditional agricultural varieties and loss of these varieties in the whole country, including Oaxaca. So there is also changes in the agricultural production systems, because to be able to produce these massive amounts of tomato, it had to be changed from traditional agriculture to what you call modern agriculture, greenhouse-based. And also, but this also led to a very rapid loss of associated traditional knowledge, this ancient traditional knowledge that Mexico has had for centuries, and the culture of eating different types of tomato was also being very rapidly lost. So what has Mexico done? Well, Mexico has not only tomato, has many other cultivars that are autochthonous from the area, but in terms of tomato, what it has done, like a few groups had started collecting Mexican varieties, and they have like the largest collection has, ex situ collection has 600 accessions, but not a single state in the country has been fully mapped. And also, like you can see that in the north part of Mexico, basically no studies have been done at all, even if it might be less agrodiverse than the south and the center. But this is actually quite worrisome. So actually, what initially was a plant science-based program clearly became a transdisciplinary program. The transdisciplinary program, because actually what is important right now is to build a conservation program, an in situ conservation program for Mexico, so this agrodiversity doesn't disappear. And in this in situ conservation program, actually, the farmers have to be at the core of the program. So farmers have to regain their capacity to share their knowledge. They need to instate again saving programs. They need to keep growing these tomatoes in their farms where they keep evolving with the environment. But also to be able to do this, actually, they need to regain, these tomatoes need to regain a place in the market. And there also needs to be in Mexico a cultural revalorization of these tomatoes that are actually part of who we are, because they are essential for Mexican cuisine. And also another very important part that we discover is that we need to protect this agrodiversity. So there needs to be a legal framework to protect the seeds from biopiracy and from companies that are actually quite interested in exploiting these resources for their own benefit and at the expense of the farmers who have been the custodians for centuries. So in order to actually do all this biochemistry, nice biochemistry and nice agronomical and genetic characterizations that I would like to do in the future, we need to actually instate this in situ conservation program as soon as possible. So how are we going to do it? Well, what we started as initially as a Lancaster program clearly grew very quickly into a transdisciplinary multinational program. So we are working now with the Leeds Health School of Food Science and Nutrition. We are working with several institutions, in some of the major institutions in Mexico, UNAM, UACM, CIDIR, Colegio de Postgraduados, and the Ethnobotanical Garden in Oaxaca, as well as the Mexican Seed Certification System program. But importantly, with farmer and cooperatives in Mexico City and Oaxaca, and chefs and traditional cooks. So our initial program started by going into Oaxaca and trying to trace this agrodiversity and see how alive and whether it was still alive. And yes, the good point is that it is still there. And there are still the farmers who know clearly these cultivars, but there is like the need to actually promote these varieties in the country and make them regain their place in our food culture and in our markets. We also did a very small scale study to test actually if these links to climate change and the nutritional value of the cultivar was actually true. So we tested 2 regions in Oaxaca with a different range of temperatures and where a commercial tomato wouldn't do very well. So 35 degrees, 14 degrees versus an optimal of 25 for a commercial cultivar. We discovered is that these tomatoes, when we did the nutritional analysis, what we discovered is that in the cold and in the warm, these varieties that are existent in Mexico accumulate higher levels of antioxidants like lycopene, provitamin A, as well as vitamin E, than the commercial variety indicated here. So actually, this is really true. They can actually do much better in very challenging environments and be highly nutritious. So we actually needed also to see if the traditional agricultural knowledge was still there. And this is a picture just to show you what are we talking about. And these farmers that live and have lived in Oaxaca with tomatoes for so many centuries have had transmitted this knowledge about tomatoes for generations are still there, but they are aging. So it's actually quite important that this traditional knowledge is transmitted across generations. So, but there are also some farmer-led initiatives that are happening in the country and that is very encouraging and that we have linked to them. So farmers that are already starting, especially in the Mexico City, seed conservation and sharing programs, as well as participatory plant breeding, knowledge sharing, and that they are very willing to work with us to transform the ex situ seed banks into in situ conservation banks, in farm banks. So of course, how can we do? We can do by helping them open new markets for these tomatoes, getting the people to know them and to appreciate them for their diversity of what they are. So we are working with them in opening these markets. And also we recruited some other participants that are also quite key. And Mexican food is actually a UNESCO World Heritage, so for its diversity and its origin. And we can also engage the gastronomy community to actually help us preserve these key ingredients for Mexican food. So we are working also with traditional cooks and with chefs and also with anthropologists that have been involved in anthropology and history of Mexican cuisine. So how can we actually all come together? So we organized actually last year, a year ago in September in Mexico City, the first Mexican Ancestral Tomato Fair. And this was done in collaboration with farmers, coordinated by Sylvia, students from different universities, Mariana and Neri, and myself, and with the support of the N8. So what went on in this initiative? So actually we had several different activities. Some were farmer-led, for example, seed exchange and seed selling, as well as workshops for the public to learn how to grow tomato. There was also a farmer market where they could see the diversity that is still existent in Mexico. And the farmers also participated with the academics in our program of multidisciplinary conferences, where we talk about tomato from different points of view, from history, anthropology, sociology, biochemistry, nutritional value, etc. So also the cooks and chefs came together in these conferences to talk about the importance of tomato for Mexican food. And they were in charge of organizing events around tomato and around these tomatoes that were produced by the farmers for cooking with them. And so people could try different ways in which we could actually enjoy these tomatoes. And also they were involved in cooking workshops. So actually with all these, like through the fair, what we discovered is that actually we have a very powerful model that we can actually export from Mexico City to the other states, bringing it to Oaxaca to actually create the necessary networks and the necessary basis for a participative in situ conservation program that can sustain a research program. So I think with this, this is all what I wanted to tell you about our program. And if you are interested, there is my contact address, and also visit our webpage where you can learn a little bit more about what are we doing in Mexico.
Thank you, Gabriela. And for anyone that's asked, we will share presentations afterwards so that you can capture those contact details on website. So now we go from Mexico to the UK with Charlie. So Charlie, are you ready to present your stuff?
Thanks, thank you, Gabriela, for a brilliant presentation. Hopefully this will do it. Yeah, so is that working?
Not yet.
Yeah,
no.
Okay. And you can hear me. So yeah, thank you, Gabriela. That was really fascinating. I have an interest because part of my family are in Oaxaca, so it was really great to hear more about the amazing work that's happening there. So yes, I'm Charlie Gray. I'm part of the Gaia Foundation's Seed Sovereignty Programme, and I'm the Northern Regional Coordinator. So I'm grateful to Anna and Dennis for inviting me to talk and be part of this today. So I'm going to talk a bit more regionally. So going from the international to the regional in the UK. And I'm also co-founder and director and a community and training coordinator at Horton Community Farm. It's a land permaculture centre for food growing and community resilience, and we're based in Bradford. So I'm not going to do a very long or detailed presentation, but I mostly wanted to just share a bit of information about the programme and what's been happening regionally, and how people can get in contact, and what the main aims are, and which parts might be of use to people.
Charlie, you're not currently sharing your screen, but yeah. Do you want me to share the presentation? Have another go.
Is that it?
There we are.
Sorry about that.
Something's coming up. Yeah, perfect.
Has it gone full screen yet?
Not yet.
Ah, is that it? Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
That's perfect.
So, yeah, so I just doing a very simple presentation of, you know, who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, where it's happening, and when it's happening. So seed sovereignty, or as some people might like to call it, seed stewardship. I'll remove, sorry, I'll try and close that, yeah. It's really, well, it's what Gabriela was talking about, is involving people who know about seed, and then in the UK context, it's trying to actually increase people who know about seed saving. So at the moment, the programme is working with farmers and market gardeners primarily. But we also, and that is something I'll talk about a bit more, but we also are aware that, you know, any food grower, anyone growing on an allotment or in a home garden is also potentially interested in seed saving, and we would like to encourage as many people as possible to get involved. So hopefully that's why a lot of you are here. Yeah, so mostly we're at this stage have been looking for and continue to look for farmers and market gardeners that might want to produce more seed. Sorry, my computer's a bit slow. Right, so yeah, so basically what we're looking at are what we call open pollinated seeds. So seeds that are pollinated naturally by insects, by the wind. Sometimes we might choose to pollinate them ourselves as well, but these are fertile seeds. So seeds that you can grow, you can get your vegetables from, and then you can leave some to go to seed, and then you can collect the seed, and then you'll be able to sow, and you'll get the same variety the next year. I do have to say that there's a bit more technical detail, so that you do have to, if you're wanting to learn about seed saving, there are some varieties that cross. Different plant families cross, and you've got inbreeders and outbreeders. I'm not going to go into that here, but if you're a beginner and you want to get into seed saving, then there are lots of things that you can save quite easily straight away. So things like peas and beans and tomatoes are easy enough to save, and you will get the same seed that you can then grow next year. And I will mention at the end of the presentation where you can learn more about the actual processes. So on the whole, the seeds that the Seed Sovereignty Programme is looking at are vegetables. And what's interesting is that since 3 years ago, when the programme started, some regional coordinators were put in place, and 2 of those coordinators in Wales and in Scotland found that one of the things that a lot of people were saving was actually grains. So in Scotland, they're working with a grain called bear. I hope I'm saying that right. It's spelled B-E-R-E, and it's a traditional variety of barley. And in Wales, they are working with oat and some other grains as well. And so those are actually heritage varieties. Some of them dating back 1,000 years, I believe, the bear growers. So that's of interest because it's some of the heritage that we have here on these islands, and those are actually called land races. the grains that we're talking about. And then we're also looking at adapted varieties, so things that have come from elsewhere, like tomatoes. A lot of growers here grow tomatoes, and they came a long time ago, I believe in sort of in the 1800s. And we've adapted them to different climates across the UK and different bioregions, the soils and the climates. So we look at adapted varieties as well. Pretty much all of our vegetables come from elsewhere. So unless we wanted to eat a lot of turnips and other wild vegetables, then you know, UK vegetables are pretty much from elsewhere. And then we look at new varieties and cultivars. So when people first use and grow something here in the UK, very often, you know, it does have to be adapted to the climate. So I was working on a really interesting programme as a participant called Sowing New Seeds. It was a project from Garden Organic, and it was working with varieties of different vegetables that people had brought from abroad when they migrated to the UK fairly recently. And what was interesting is how people had adapted them to the climate. And then sometimes people will deliberately select different properties and cross breed, so do some plant breeding, you know, on allotments or market gardeners or people that are looking particularly for, it could be taste, it could be how long the vegetable lasts, or how easy it is to save the seeds from for different traits. And those and then cultivars are developed in that way. Okay, so this, oops, sorry. So this is actually a photograph of the glass houses of the seed co-op, which are in Lincolnshire, and this is a very, I think it's 17, I forget if it's 17 hectares, so it's certainly a huge area, not the glass houses, but they have a lot of land there. And as you can see, the glass houses are pretty huge. I believe that's a carrot, that's carrot being grown for seed. And the seed co-op started in 2015. So these are people who decided they wanted to grow to produce seed, and it's a cooperative that encourages people from across the country to produce seed for them, and that they also then sell. So they produce their own and then buy and sell other people's seed. So people are growing in polytunnels or glass houses and out in the fields. And those are seed producers who are selling, and probably the people that a lot of us are buying from. But what's interesting, obviously, if you're in the north, is that a lot of the seeds come from Devon or Wales, real seeds, and Tamar seeds. So they're not necessarily regionally adapted, and so you know, so we could have better adapted seeds for where we're growing, and the timescales and things that you need to grow things in the north are slightly different to the south with different daylight levels. So yeah, people are obviously also saving in community spaces and doing seed swaps. Dennis is going to tell us more about a seed library. We'd like to set one up as well here in Bradford, and there are seed banks. And obviously people grow on allotments or in their own gardens. So seed saving is happening in all sorts of spaces across the north. Sorry, my cursor, oh, there we go. So seed saving has occurred since, well, probably before the beginning of agriculture, and it is, you know, very much part of what created agriculture with the domestication of wild plants, and then people were choosing which things to grow once they became sedentary. But what's interesting is that seed companies, even in the UK, have only really existed for about 150 years. And prior to that, people would share and swap seeds. So there wasn't necessarily a monetary transaction. It was part of what we call the gift economy. So legislation and other factors have significantly reduced the amount of local and open pollinated seed that's available to farmers and growers. And in the UK at the moment, we actually import 80% of our seed. A lot of that's from Europe, but nevertheless, it means it's less regionally adapted and less suitable to growing conditions here. And in order for us to have a much more resilient food system, we really need to have more seed available. So 3 years ago, the Seed Sovereignty Programme started. It delivered phase 1 of the programme and started working with the seed co-op and the grain growers and real seeds in Wales. And we've just started another 3 years of the programme. So yeah, I've just joined the programme for the next 3 years. So why would we want to do it anyway? So like Gabriela covered a lot of this. In the UK, we don't have a huge number of endemic species and varieties of vegetables. Nevertheless, we've used plants from elsewhere for a very long time, and we have bred lots of different varieties that are more adapted to the local climate and soils. So one of the reasons we want to promote seed sovereignty is to reclaim the genetic diversity and to build genetic resilience in the populations of vegetables and other things that we're growing. And like I said, it's a big part of relocalizing the food system and also adapting to changes in the climate and the environment. And this is part of rebuilding what we call agroecological systems. So connecting people back to the seed and local people to buying local food and to grow in agroecological ways so that, you know, we're not polluting water systems and yeah, so forth. And obviously to produce where people are. So some of these projects that we're working with now are in the city. And yeah, I'm in the city in Bradford, so for me it's very much a part of rebuilding a food culture and to build community resilience. So the more people have seeds in their own hands, the better. So the Seed Sovereignty Programme is doing that by reconnecting networks and supporting them. This lovely photograph is a group of the Welsh seed savers. They're called Llafur Ni, and I actually have to confess I've forgotten what it means. Apologies to Katie, who is working with them. And they are saving oat seeds, and they've been swapping and sharing old heritage varieties of oats, just to look at which ones they want to grow. And yeah, it's very interesting from a legal point of view because grain is an agricultural seed and an agricultural crop, and therefore the legislation is much tighter around what you can do. But nevertheless, they've been yeah, trialing varieties and saving and sharing the seed. So yeah, and in terms of people who aren't producing seed to sell, part of the whole point of the programme is to raise general awareness and to signpost people to opportunities for learning more. So these are some of the varieties. So there's some lovely tomato varieties there on the right that have been adapted to local climates. I think one of the pieces of paper says Scotland something, and then lots of squash and beans. So none of these are endemic to the UK, but these are varieties that work here. So yeah, so like I say, if anyone wants to find out more, this is the Seed Sovereignty website. This page that it's on here is the Near Me map, and there is a click down list, so you can check there's other projects and things on the map. You might find something more local to you that's useful. There's a really good resources page which goes through things like yeah, training, different opportunities. There's various other tabs there you might want to look at, and these are my details that so feel free to contact me. And I should probably add, I mean, I imagine Anna and Dennis might also mention it, but the Northern Real Farming Conference is coming up, and there's another couple of seed sovereignty sessions as part of that. So I'll put the links in the chat at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to Dennis, Charlie, Dennis asked, is Stormy Hall Seeds involved in the seed co-op?
So Stormy Hall Seeds themselves aren't, but I have, since we chatted, I have actually managed to get in touch with Hans, and he is going to be talking at the Northern Real Farming Conference. So that's really great. I don't know him too well. I know he was very involved in helping set up and advising the seed co-op. And yeah, he's going to talk about his experience because he is a farmer that's grown open pollinated biodynamic seed for more than 20 years at Stormy Hall Seeds in North Yorkshire. And I did phone the other day, and I do believe he was actually in Yorkshire. So he's around, and I'm trying to gently, see if he's, what he's wanting to do. But he's been very involved, and he's going to speak at the conference.
Great, thank you. Okay, so thank you for that, Charlie, to give us an overview of the Gaia programme. So we'll now go to Dennis and the Lancaster Seed Library, and after that we'll open up for questions. So Dennis,
yeah.
Are you ready?
So can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm Dennis. I am the coordinator of the Lancaster Seed Library. I mean, I don't like to use coordinator anymore. It was useful when the first years when we got the funding, because I was managing the funding, but now I consider myself a member of the Seed Library. And normally I use this presentation when we do workshops. So when we do skill sharing about how to save seeds, but that presentation takes about a couple of hours. So I had to edit it for this workshop. And I will just talk about the basics. So I will just say a few things about seeds. I will introduce the seed library and then introduce our networks from around the world.
Dennis, the grey thing's on your screen again, so can you move it, please? Thank you.
Can you see it now?
It's in the middle and on the side. Oh, the middle's disappeared now.
Okay.
Just on the side.
Oh, it's on the side?
Yeah.
Okay. Now?
It's better. It's good.
Okay. So normally when we run these workshops, I ask the audience, what do they think seeds are? So what do seeds mean to them? So I would like to ask you to write on the chat, what do you think seeds are? What the word seeds mean to you? So yeah, let's not just do it on the chat. So a seed is the unit of reproduction of a flowering plant capable of developing into another such plant. And that's the definition in the Oxford English Dictionary, which personally is very accurate, but I find it a bit dry. So personally, I prefer another definition by a very inspiring woman, which is called Vandana Shiva, who is an activist, a seed activist and a scholar. And her definition is that the seed, in its essence, is all of the past evolution of the earth, the evolution of human history, and the potential for future evolution. So seeds, when we go to, where do we find seeds? So when we visit a forest, if we can imagine that the forest was created by seeds and it is constantly regenerated by seeds. So plants use seeds to regenerate But also we use seeds to grow our food. So this is an example of a garden where these plants have been grown by seeds. But in addition to this, we use seeds to eat them. So seeds are food, as you can see in this picture, or we use seeds for spiritual purposes. So for example, this picture is from a wedding in India where they use seeds as an offering. We also use seeds in art. So by making this painting, for example, or art again, music, making musical instruments. And seeds come in different sizes. So you can have tiny seeds like the seeds of this mimosa tree, which are carried by these tiny ants. Or you can have huge seeds like this seed of this rare coconut called Coco de Mer, which is the biggest seed on the earth at the moment. And also seeds come in great diversity. So I really love beans and I really love the diversity of beans. So this is a picture that has many different beans and so the diversity, different colors. And this is corn that we grew in the seed library, and it's a corn that is from around the world, from Peru, and corn that's grown in England from the real seeds. And as you can see, there's massive diversity here as well. And but the question is, why save seeds? So again, I would like, normally in the workshop, I ask the audience to just throw ideas, just why is it important to save seeds? But now I welcome you to write on the chat, why would you save seeds and why do you think it's important? I mean, it was mentioned from Charlie and Gabriela. So yeah. So again, a quote by Vandana Shiva, that the desire to save seeds comes from an ethical urge to defend life's evolution. But this is a very nice quote, but why do we really need to defend life evolutions? Well, the problem is that it is estimated that because of monocultures and the industrial agriculture systems, since the beginning of the last century, about 70% of the plant genetic diversity has been lost because farmers rely on hybrid seeds, seeds that produce a lot, but they rely only on one seed, they rely on monoculture. And also seeds are the first step, well, yeah, it's the very important steps of food sovereignty, which is food sovereignty is the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the right to define their own food and agricultural systems. So seeds are the first step of people having control of what they want to grow, what they want to eat. So that's why we save seeds. But also seed saving is fun. It's like a hobby. You can geek out as much as you want with saving seeds. So there's books and you can grow different plants and cross them and see what comes out or see what doesn't come out. And yeah, seeds, it can be a very creative activity and it's really fun. This is a picture from the seed library where we had all the seeds on potato day and people were walking by and looking at the seeds and looking at the diversity. So that's the reason, these are the reasons why we decided to set up a seed library in Lancaster. So we set up the seed library in 2015 with money. We applied for money at the Heritage Fund and we got the money and we set up the seed library. And the seed library is based at the Central Library in Lancaster. Sorry, and it's open to everyone to use, and it's based on 3 basic steps. So the 3 steps are, first, you borrow the seeds from the seed library and you learn how to save seed by attending our workshops or doing your own research. You sow the borrowed seeds, you grow plants, and when it's time to harvest, you harvest the seeds. You can use the seeds, you can keep them, you can cook them, but also we would love if you return some to the seed library so we can keep it going. And then we keep the seed library alive and we maintain the circle. So where is it located? So this is the seed library basically in the Lancaster library. This is one element of the seed library. So we have these 2 cabinets, the incoming and outgoing. So in the incoming, people bring their seed that they saved or seed that they want to share, and they put it in one of these drawers. And the outgoing, then we have a look at the seed, and we also bring our seed. And then we check the quality, and we put the seeds in the outgoing when people can borrow the seed and then grow and bring back some. And we have these two logbooks, one for the outgoing and one for the ingoing, where people sign the date and what they took or what they brought and when they took it. And this allows us to basically monitor and see how the seed library is going. So how much activity is there. And in these 5 years, we've seen lots of activity. People are bringing seeds and taking seeds, and they say thank you. They say how great this idea is and all these kind of things. And also this cabinet is in a very central spot in the library. So basically, when you walk in the library, you see it straight away. And we also have this notice board where we have advice how to save seed, and also we link it to the other community groups. We have posters from other community groups. And also the seed library has legs. So these two cabinets, we can take them and do workshops in different places. So this picture here is from the Potato Day, which is an annual festival that happens in Lancaster in January or February. And we have the cabinets and we take all our seeds, and people come and take seeds and learn about the seed library and learn why it's important to save seed. And also we show people how to save seeds. So this is me saving quinoa seed on Potato Day. And the other element of the seed library is our growing beds, which are located in Clever Hill Community Farm, which is basically like our living lab. Is where we grow the seed and we do experiments and grow different plants. And yeah. And some examples of plants that we've grown for 4 years, we've been growing quinoa in Lancaster. So now we say unofficially that we established our own Lancastrian quinoa, which is the quinoa that grows really good in Lancaster. And these are the plants. We did because we grew beetroot and saved beetroot seed, because beetroot is a plant that grows seed on the second year. So that was another project that we did, growing beetroot. And also today we harvested these black emperor beans, which is a heritage variety that we took from a seed swap. So these are just an example of some plants we saved. But also we are connected to different, basically our strength is not just in these beds and the cabinets in the library, but our strength is in our network. So in connections with other groups and other seed savers. So this is the Sewing Cafe in Lancaster, which I think there was a presentation about it in the Health Festival. So they made for us these cotton packets for seeds. So we are connected with other community groups as well. And also we adapted to different situations. So when the lockdown happened in March, just before it happened, we went to the cabinets, we took all our seeds, we took them home, and then we were posting to people our seeds. So we tried to adapt to the different circumstances. Also, we are connected to different seed-related events across the UK. So this is from a seed swap that the Permaculture Association organized in Leeds, where we went, talked about the seed library and brought some seeds back. These are the black Avero beans that we grew and we saved seed today. So this is the circle of seeds and plants. And also we brought basically Charlie from Horton Community Farm, which did the presentation. She gave us a massive amount of seeds. So we are connected to this project as well. But also beyond the UK, we are connected with seed banks, for example, with this seed bank in Bolivia. And we went to Greece and we visited an Orthodox monastery with nuns at the top of the mountain, where they've been saving seeds for many decades. And we learned from them how to save seeds. So here is Anna saving tomato seeds at the monastery. We visited Peliti, which is an amazing project that's been going on for 25 years in Greece, and they're saving seeds. And they have this is το σπιτάκι των σπόρων, which means it's a little house of seeds, which is located at very close to the northern borders of Greece, between Greece and Bulgaria. And there's a massive amount of seeds there, and every year they organize a festival, which a seed saving festival, which is attended from people from all over the world. We visited a seed saving bank in the south of Spain, in Andalusia, Biosecura, and this is their seed bank. And we learned a lot about how they save the seeds and how they grow and the distances. They also had a very interesting permaculture forest garden where they were saving their seeds, which was quite amazing. So we got very inspired by this. And also we visited the West Bank in Palestine, and for example, we visited this farm, which is at the borders at the borders of the West Bank. And they experiment with a lot of different appropriate technologies and agroecological systems. And we had a look at their seed bank. Fortunately, the night before we visited, the seed bank had been broken down, and nobody stole anything, but the burglars, they had thrown away the seeds and emptied they had thrown away the seeds, and this happens quite often. And this made us realize how, because this is, for this farm, these are the only seeds that they have to grow. They don't buy seeds. So it made us realize and be grateful for how lucky we are to have seeds. And And we also visited another seed bank in the West Bank, which was an amazing, really well-organized seed bank in Hebron, which is run by women. And they also save seeds and distribute seeds around the West Bank. So that's another project we visited. So just to summarize, seed saving is fun, but seed saving is also a political action. It's a form of resistance, depending on the context that you live in or how you see things. And we have the skills here in the Lancaster Seed Library, but also wider, like with Charlie and around the UK and around the world. We have the skills, we have land, we have the seeds, and we have water to save seeds. So come and find us if you live in Lancaster, and we can share the skills and save seeds together. And also, we are not alone. We are part of a wider network of people that are passionate about seeds and they want to save seeds. So come and join us. And to find out more, you can visit our Facebook page, which is, you just write on Facebook Lancaster Seed Library, or visit the Central Library, or join Cleverhill, the community farm Cleverhill, where you can, someone will be there and tell you about how they save seed and how you can join the seed library. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, so we've heard from our three wonderful speakers this evening. So now it's a chance to ask your questions. So Dennis, if you stop sharing your screen, we will, that's great. So I can now see everyone. So does anyone have any question for Gabriela, Dennis, or Charlie, or anyone else that's here? Whilst you're thinking, I'll just add to Dennis's presentation that because the Lancaster Library has been closed and is now limited in terms of access, you have to book an appointment to go in. The Lancaster Sewing Cafe has set up these so-and-so boxes. So they're like little libraries that a local green woodworker has made. And these are now appearing around the city to distribute, for us to put in seeds as well as sewing stuff, so people can come and borrow them still in exchange. So there are 4 that have appeared around the district at the moment. So any questions?
I've got some questions if nobody else wants to ask anything.
Go for it, Yvonne.
Okay, thank you. So I am based in Lancaster, and I have recently got to the top of the allotment waiting list on Cork Road allotments, and I now have an allotment. And seed saving is one of those things that I'm aware of and would like to be involved in for all the reasons we've heard about. But I actually know very little. I'm one of the people who would need a training session. And I'm just wondering, in the current situation, how somebody like me could go about learning, you know, perhaps not for this year, because to be honest, my allotment's such a weedy wasteland at the moment. Nobody would want the weed seeds. But hopefully this time next year, I will have lots of lovely plants that I'm prepared to let go to seed and save the seeds. But I would want to do it properly, so I was contributing useful and usable seeds. So how would I learn to do that properly?
I can answer that. Just because I've been thinking about running a seed saving workshop or a series of them at Claver Hill this autumn and winter. So even with the restrictions, we can still run training outside at Claver Hill in groups of 6. So I'll let people know about any training that comes up. And I've been talking to Charlie about whether the program can support us in doing that. And we have a very good local trainer who is also able to support us in this. So okay. I'll let you know about that.
So if I follow the Facebook groups, the Seed Library and the Claver Hill one, hopefully I'll pick up on those.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to that.
Good. Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, two if that's possible. Number one, how long do the training sessions take? Because I was just wondering, could we break them down into YouTube clips and put them on the website or something? That might be useful. Certainly, our own allotment runs its own Facebook page, so we could, you could drop them into there and get that kind of done. So I don't know if that's a possibility or not. Secondly, I think Gabriela, our first speaker, was talking about climates, so tomatoes in different climates, and some for cooler, some hotter. We don't have to go 25 degrees for everything all the time. Do you have any great tomatoes we can grow in Lancaster? Because I get a crop, but it's hard work. So yeah, that works.
Yes, yes. In that term, I was actually quite interested in the tomatoes that didn't need sun, or much sun. And were adapted to low temperatures. And yes, in the Sierras of Oaxaca, we can find those tomatoes, and they are actually different sorts of varieties that are small or some that are bigger. They could adapt well to environments like Lancaster.
Could we get hold of some of those? I mean, I'd love to stick them in my pointer.
This is actually what we are at present. We're working with the Mexican government, because for what we want really is that these resources are available for everybody who's interested in. And I mean, and the Mexican farmers are happy to share, but the only thing is protect the seed from the company.
Commercial exploitation, that's right.
Exploitation. So for this, the first step is to register them in Mexico. So if they are in the seed bank in Mexico, then they can be shared under certain circumstances, not for commercial use, but for research or for sharing. So we are working with that. So hopefully, if everything goes well, maybe in a year or so, we might be able to bring some of these tomatoes to the UK.
Okay, I'll put that in my diary for next year. Thank you.
Yes, let's hopefully done with coronavirus.
Oh well.
Hopefully next year.
Thank you.
And the question about YouTube, I have the question for Charlie really. I was trying to find, because Cleona asked me about where can you learn about seed saving, and I struggled to find useful online videos that showed you the whole process. So this year I was like, I'll film myself doing the different stages. So I've now got bits from the whole year around tomatoes. But it would be good if there was that resource to show you from how you think about the growing and the isolation through to how you know when the seeds are ready. Does that exist?
So I think some of it exists. I haven't had enough time in the role that I'm in yet to check all the resources that Gaia has, the Gaia Foundation. But I'm aware that people have run introductory and intermediate courses all across the UK and Ireland. And as someone's put in the comment, Vital Seeds has an online seed saving course. There's lots of resources, but I think maybe having better summaries of what the resources cover before you decide to take them is part of what we need to do. So Vital Seeds, I don't know exactly what it contains. I have yet to watch that. I am hoping after the Northern Rail Farming Conference to have an online offering. So that should be available this autumn. One of the remits of the seed saving program is to offer introductory, intermediate and then advanced training. So the idea is to get people from wherever they're at to the next stage of seed saving. I will be working with Anna, and hopefully there will be a real life seed saving training as well. But I guess if it's for a small group, then maybe part of what we do is film some of that and add to the resources Anna's already put in place. I know from the program's point of view, the seed sovereignty program's point of view, we're doing a lot on a smallish budget. It's a good budget, but to try not to replicate, I think one of the things I'll be doing is signposting people to local resources. But as I am in the north, I also really want to help develop and promote the resources that are here and help bring them together. So yeah, I am working with the program manager on the website, and so we're looking at what resources are there and how to order them and how people find them. So there is actually already a really good resources page, and there are some bits of training on there, but yeah, it's a work in progress.
I mean, it shouldn't be expensive, should it? I mean, because you just get an iPhone basically and film somebody. And if you've got somebody who can present and talk clearly, then you're there, aren't you? Really? I mean, we just had a splurge this year doing podcasts for the Health Festival, and we've downloaded 98 already. I'm hoping to hit 100 before I go to bed, really. Wow. Which would be great. And I was thinking it may be done much before then, but it would be great at next year's Health Festival to launch a series of 5 YouTube clips on how you save your own seed. And make that part of the kind of project, if you see what I mean, or even just do it throughout the year and release it and things like that. And because there are people who are interested but need to look at stuff in their own time, really, and it's getting that market, isn't it? So
I think it's not too hard to do a basic or intro level course training. However, people will inevitably, probably right from the start, be wanting to save different things, and obviously you've got all the different types of vegetables that require slightly different types of things that you need to know. So I mean, it's good, it's easy enough to do a basic intro course, but then the idea of the intermediate training is that then people can go and learn think about whether they're going to go and produce seed, basically. Okay,
that's an interesting challenge. We'll go for that.
So I think a series of videos is probably right, because there's the sort of very basic general information around the fact that there are different types of inbreeders and outbreeders, and if you need to isolate and that kind of thing. A series I think would be really useful. I know there are some, and I'm sorry I've not had a better look at them yet, but my first job was to try and find out who's around and what people are doing. But yeah, the resources, I guess, is generally a bit more of an autumn-winter job anyway. So there should be things that we'll be sort of sharing more, obviously, with people.
Thank you.
Dennis, you have something to say, and then Rachel's
Yeah,
asked a question.
I just wanted to say that resources and information are great, and there's lots of books and online videos and lots of information. But if you're based in Lancaster, the best way is to come to Claverhill and see how we grow all together and how we save seed and learn by doing it and putting your hands in the soil. And yeah, so join Claver.
I have to say that because when I first started reading about seed saving, I got overwhelmed by everything I had to think about. And then when you work with someone who does it, you learn it's more about seeing, and you get the feel for what you're looking for and what seed quality is involved and all of this. So it does help to know people.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to add really quickly that we also have all the resources. So we recently bought great isolation cages. We also found really good isolation cages, and yeah, so we have all the resources. We have skills, we have land, we have seeds. So come and join us.
Okay, and Rachel's asked a question. What are the most challenging seeds you've saved? I guess that can be open to all speakers or anyone else here. Dennis?
Beetroot, because I was away on that on that trip in the Mediterranean, and when I came back, people told me that it crossed with chard, because someone grew chard very close to the beetroot, and it was a 2-year project, so that was really challenging. But we're not sure have we grown the seed? I can't remember.
It self-seeded itself everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's full of life and vitality, so it doesn't matter. What about you, Gabriela and Charlie?
Well, I think it's like with the tomatoes, the issue is that some of them have very short-term viability. So this is an issue, and also keeping in some cases homogeneous populations, let's say, rather than varieties. It's tough because of the same reason. They outcross very quickly. So actually, this is also a challenge to start like at the project basically for the seed bank in Mexico. What we need to do is all the genetics to actually establish that what we are starting with is homogeneous, or to which degree it's homogeneous. So yeah, it is also a challenge, but on the other hand, it's also good because it means that the cultivar is very alive and it can actually keep evolving very quickly.
Great, thank you. And Charlie, what about you?
I wouldn't say I've saved anything particularly challenging, to be honest. I tend to save what we have an abundance of. So yeah, so there's what I save a lot of is wildflowers, and then peas, beans. Starting to say lettuce is just a bit fiddly. It's very small, anything with very small seeds, or seeds that kind of pop out of the seed case, so things like broom. But yeah, no, I've not saved anything particularly challenging, and I've not deliberately crossed anything. I've not been breeding anything, so yeah, I just ended up with a lot of seeds. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with them? They need to be grown. So it's just taken me on the next step of setting up a library like in Lancaster. So if anyone, I know Albert's here, so if anyone else is in Yorkshire, we also want to set up a seed library at Horton Community Farms, because the seeds are there, I've been growing lots and saving for years. We just need to organise and share them and put them in a little library as well.
Great, thank you. And Melanie's asked the question, do you think there is any mileage in having a northern seed company that could also be treated as a training resource?
Shall I answer that? Or do you want someone else to answer?
Charlie, you can answer it, Charlie.
Yeah, definitely, obviously. Yeah, I mean, officially, according to the handover I had from the person who'd previously worked in the north of England, the Seeds Co-op, the largest company at present, is still in the north. However, there is a difference in the ecology and the microclimate in Lincolnshire and Yorkshire, Lancashire, anywhere further north. I mean, temperatures drop, daylight is longer in the summer but much shorter in the winter. So yeah, there definitely is. And also just because the more we can organise, you know, the more we need to massively increase seed, and you know, the more community growers there are, the more seed producers there are, we're going to need other ways of organising. So probably, yeah, another co-op in the north, but it might take a few years. I have talked to Sinead, the programme manager, about this idea, and she does agree, so yeah.
Great, so I look forward to seeing that emerge and form. David has asked, could you say something about sharing information about the different seeds, varieties in brackets, and how they can be used? I'm not completely clear on that question, David, so could you explain it a bit more?
I've unmuted. Can you hear me? Great.
Yes.
I was thinking about, there's a database for rice varieties, and so you can look up there and see what rice variety resists particular diseases, what rice variety grows well in particular temperatures, and so forth. And obviously for someone who's going to grow a variety, this sort of information is useful. And I've heard about all these wonderful seed saving projects where people are gathering seeds and observing what the plants do and so on. But it would be great if there was some sort of central information point so that someone who's going to grow seed can look up and say, oh, I'm right in the northeast of England, there's lots of rain here. This is the particular variety that would be good for my particular land.
Who feels they can answer that? Charlie, you've unmuted yourself.
I don't think I can give a complete answer, but I can sort of share a few thoughts. So things like Plants for a Future, obviously that's more to do with like often wild varieties and stuff, but there are databases for different things. But I suppose what we're talking about is seeds that often come from seed companies, and so the place where you get that information is on their website and or on the seed packet. And I suppose the challenge with that is I mean, we don't have loads of seed companies anyway. The other place you get it from is, you know, local knowledge, just organising and talking to other people and being part of seed swaps and sharing. I'm always a little bit resistant to the idea of cataloguing and databasing everything, because it's a very easy way to give the information to people that we don't want to get that information. So it's probably a bit less sensitive in the UK, but yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that's a good question, and maybe it's a case. I mean, I was talking with Sinead from the Seed Sovereignty Programme about the idea of kind of buyer co-ops. So people organising, even as growers on allotments or farmers, kind of organising a bit more regionally. Now, a lot of allotment societies do buy seeds together. And maybe the place for that kind of knowledge and information is a bit more regional and like really local, actually. So I would suggest that's. I think there's elements of embodied knowledge that we need to keep embodied rather than written down. And ideally, you want people to talk about this, and you want to know it from your fellow growers that you see the most. So I would say allotment societies and farmers co-ops and things like that are probably the best places. But those are my resistances to writing things down, so you may have a different feeling about it.
Yeah, and Gabriela, your question, is that directed at Dennis or all of us? Dennis.
Yeah,
So,
Dennis or Charlie, I don't really know.
Okay.
So yes, this is one of the issues that we are dealing in Mexico. So yeah, how to protect the farmers while also opening it to share. So Mexican government has different degrees of registration. So we can apply for a registration that allows this sharing with a small farming or farming communities or seed saving groups, but prevents like that this seed get into commercial hands. But I don't know, for example, Peru, like all those corn that you showed, how do they do it? They must do it, I don't know if they do it in the same way than Mexico, a very different way.
So that, Dennis, do you want to answer that?
So I'm not sure how it's done, because this corn is from Real Seeds, which is a company in the south of England that have a lot of different varieties of corn and pollinated varieties of different vegetables. So I'm not sure how they do it.
Okay. But, yes, they must have some sort of agreement with the Peruvian government.
Yeah,
or they're already registered and somehow commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is, like Gabriela said, it's to do with registered varieties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's one of the difficulties.
It's a registered variety.
Yeah.
Then it's somehow open to sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, are there any more questions?
I think Melanie asked, how do we see the seed library expanding?
Okay.
So we don't necessarily see it expanding. So the thing with the seed library is that the seed library is designed on permaculture principles. So the idea was that we get the maximum output with a minimal effort. So, and it's open to people, you know, it's an open system, so people come and contribute, and so we don't necessarily see it expanding like the way we understand today growth and expansion and all these kind of things, but we see it continuing and continuing in the same pattern, basically. So as it is.
And it's worth saying that it's shaped by who's involved. So
Yeah,
if more people get involved, there'll be bigger growing space. And like Spud Club at Claver Hill want to grow more stuff for seed. Like they're talking today about giving a large area to lentil growing to save seed to adapt it, because I started trialing that this year. So it's based on what energy the group has. So if we train people like Ivona and you get really into seed saving, who knows where we'll go. Any more questions?
Anna, shall I just add some information about the Northern Real Farming Conference?
Yeah.
So for anyone that's interested, the Northern Real Farming Conference, so some of you may have heard of the Oxford Real Farming Conference, or even the Oxford Farming Conference. So the Oxford Real Farming Conference is a conference based on promoting agroecological approaches to farming, organic and permaculture, etc. And that conference has been going 10 years. And it's super popular. It's really outgrown the Oxford Farming Conference, which is, you know, the very sort of big farmer monoculture type, and I guess sort of more technology oriented, thinking that solutions are going to come from technology. Anyway, so there's been an Oxford Farming Conference, but a lot of northern people have said, well, we need one in the north, and Anna is involved in organising, and I know there are other organisers here today. So that's coming up online from the 28th of September to the 10th of October, and there are going to be 2 seed related sessions. So I'll just put them in the chat in case anyone wants to come. The tickets are, I think £15 is the sort of lower income rate. There's a higher rate, and then if people need it, there were bursaries. I don't know if there's still any available, but so yeah, you'd be very welcome. And if you want to get in touch about, you know, and anything, feel free to contact me as well.
So that feels like a good point to start closing, I think. So thank you for all coming, and thank you, Dennis, Gabriela and Charlie, for giving an hour and a half of your time and sharing your wisdom and your work. So thank you for that. I hope everyone feels a little inspired to get into or try out some seed saving if you're not doing so already. I'll share the slides and presentations after this, and I'll also share an evaluation link. And keep an eye on the Lancaster Health Festival website for maybe a series of seed saving videos or podcasts, and have a look at the podcasts that are there already. Okay, so I am going to